Hi Mitch, I used to be a doctoral student and my only goal in life was to become a world-class physical therapist, and I slaved away for 10 years trying to get into my dream program. But as soon as I finally got accepted, I gave it all up, left the US, and never turned back. I'm sure people thought I was crazy, and there were even comments thrown around that I was being wildly irresponsible and wasting my God-given talents. And I mean, I do get it because I did flush 10 years of my life down the drain. Years sleeping in the library instead of out partying with my friends, years spending summers in the anatomy lab instead of out swimming on the beach, years working unpaid internships instead of using my energy to earn actual money. Throwing away all that hard effort was one of the hardest decisions of my life, but it was also one of the best decisions of my life. And if you're feeling stuck, I think that my story and some of the insights I learned along the way might help you. Even some of my closest friends, and maybe even my wife, don't even know some of the personal details that I'm about to share with you, so it feels kind of weird putting it out on the internet for everyone to see, but I'm going for it anyway because I think it might be able to help people. So according to society, it looked like my life was pretty good and that I was going down the successful path, but really deep down, I was kind of in a bad place. I was 70 pounds overweight and really embarrassed about my body because I was stress eating all the time, and I was suffering from some pretty severe social anxiety from a breakup where I was called awkward, and that comment just kind of stuck with me and scarred me. After that happened, I literally felt like I needed to chug alcohol before I went to any social function. So even though the people around me might not have realized it, I wasn't doing great. Then in my last year of undergrad, I got the opportunity to travel from Michigan to Arizona to do another one of those unpaid internships, but it ended up being the exact thing that I needed because I was in a brand new place, and that brought along with it brand new opportunities. Right when I got there, I met a girl in the physical therapy clinic that I was working at, and since I didn't know anyone, she invited me out for a beer. She mentioned that her dream was to go backpacking through Thailand for 1 month, and I thought that was interesting, but literally I had never thought of traveling before. It was just not even on my mind because I was so laser focused on my career that the idea of travel didn't even come up. But I did have a couple of months left before my doctoral program started, and I was already kind of in a YOLO mood because of my move to Arizona, so I just blurted out, "I'll go with you to Thailand." And the next thing you know, I'm on the other side of the world. I cannot understate how much this experience impacted me because of the people that I met. I met these long-term travelers who had been traveling for months or years on the road, exploring the world, earning money in different ways, and it just kind of opened my mind. It was things that you don't get taught in school. You don't even know that there are possibilities in life. I met a gym teacher from France who somehow managed to land a job personal training a millionaire on his yacht, traveling around to all these cool different islands. There was a miner from Australia who used the money he saved up to buy a hostel in Thailand and ran it there. The scuba diving instructor I had used to be a banker in her previous life, and the little scooter rental shop that I rented a motorbike from was owned by a guy who used to be a lawyer in the US and just gave it all up to move to Thailand. And after talking to all these people and way more, a trend started showing up to me in my mind, and I realized that a lot of these people were really successful people, and now they were living relatively simple lives. But the thing was, I could see in their eyes that they were genuinely happy. Like, you could see it when you're talking to them. Their eyes would be shining or brighter than the people you see back home who always have a case of the Mondays. Anyway, all these experiences kind of left my mind swirling around, and on the way back from Thailand, I realized that there's more to life than success and career, and it might sound obvious, but I had not even thought about that. I was basically just following a mold. And the more I thought about this, the more I realized that if I didn't do something about this now and act on this information and these feelings that I'm having right now, I probably never would or wouldn't get a chance to do it for a long time. I just kept thinking to myself, if not now, then when? That said, I still wasn't ready to give up on my life career and everything I'd been working towards. I was just kind of toying with the idea and trying to figure out how I could make this work financially and practically. And as soon as I got home, I just remember going to the library and checking out this giant stack of books about traveling on a budget, about languages, about backpacking. And I literally remember one night I stayed up the entire night, like reading a bunch of different travel blogs. I was just chugging energy drinks and just absorbing all the information that I could about this type of lifestyle. And at the end of that night, an idea kind of rise to the surface that I wanted to backpack through Latin America, Central and South America, by land, by bus. And in order to do that, I needed to figure out what I was going to do with my doctoral program that I was going to start in like 1 month. So I sent an email to the program basically asking if there were any possibility or if there's anything they can do, if they could postpone my spot or anything like that. And I wasn't 100% committed, you know, it was still kind of a fantasy in my mind, and I didn't know if I was going to go through with it or not. But then I received a response from that doctoral program that I worked forever to get into, and it basically said, see you next year. It didn't say, yes, we could hold your spot if you wanted to. I think if they would have sent me that email, it would have been way harder, because I still would have had to decide if I wanted to postpone my career or if I wanted to go on this adventure. But they kind of made the decision for me, which made life way easier. They said, see you next year. So even though I was scared and I really had no idea what I was doing, I set off by myself, landed in Mexico, and started heading south. And as soon as I did that, all those problems that I mentioned earlier that I was having in life started to get better. For one, my plan was to travel for 10 months, which meant I had to travel on a shoestring budget and really pinch my pennies. So I was staying in hostels and shared dormitories. That meant I got to meet new people from all around the world every single day. And none of these people knew my past. None of these people knew that I had social anxiety or my problems or any of that. It was like I had a clean slate every single day. I also felt that there was no pressure to impress anyone, because I knew that in 2 days we would be partying and going different ways, and so I didn't really care what people thought about me. It made everything feel super low risk, and it was like friend making on easy mode, because everyone else was lonely too, and everyone else was trying to link up with people. So I'd say over the first couple of weeks, I gradually started to build up more and more confidence, and I realized that all that social anxiety I had gradually started to disappear. Not only that, but I also realized that meeting all these new people from all these places constantly opens up new opportunities, which is a huge life hack, which I'll talk about in a second. At this point, I was still pretty fixed on my career and everything. As soon as I got home, I was going to continue what I had planned on doing. But then someone planted a seed. I remember I was in this tiny beach surf town in El Salvador, and every single day we would just go out surfing. I was learning how to surf, then come back and lay in these hammocks in front of the beach, drink coconut smoothies, and read all day. And I met this Swedish couple, and we just got chatting about plans and everything. I told them my plan for becoming a physical therapist in the US, and they mentioned, why don't you go to Europe and study physiotherapy there at an international school, and you can keep traveling and keep meeting people from all around the world. That way you can still do your career, but you can also keep traveling and having these adventures. This was like a huge light bulb moment for me, because I had never even heard of such a concept before. And if I wouldn't have randomly bumped into this Swedish couple in a random tiny town in El Salvador, I wouldn't even know that opportunities like this existed. I still wasn't ready to make any definitive changes yet, but it definitely got my gears turning and got me start thinking that there's more paths and more options than just this one program that I'd been slaving to get into, and that there's a whole world of opportunities. I just need to uncover them and figure out what they are. So I kept going on my trip little by little, traveling down Central America until I got to El Salvador, where I arrived in this hostel and I just couldn't stop thinking about my life plan. I was having trouble sleeping at night and thinking about the career I had gone after for so long, and thinking about all the people I met, and thinking about these new opportunities, and I just really didn't know what to do. I kept thinking that after everything I've experienced so far, this was a few months into my trip, after everything I experienced so far, how could I just go back to normal life and pretend that it didn't happen? And the moment that changed everything, I remember the specific day. I was in a hostel, I was swinging in this hammock for hours. I had a 6-pack of beer there, trying to relax. I had my phone, I was just doing research like crazy on all the different options, different countries, different jobs, different opportunities. I had this janky old phone, and so it was taking forever to figure things out. And that's when I started writing another email to my program, basically telling them that I wasn't going to come back, but I didn't know if I wanted to send it. I was just writing it out and staring at it and rewriting it and erasing it and staring at it and writing out pros and cons lists, and I was literally driving myself crazy. On the con side, I would have 10 years wasted, my talent wasted, all the money I had taken out in student loans wasted, Actually, that one doesn't get air quotes because it actually was wasted. I'd probably get judgment from my family and friends about what they're thinking about my life decisions. It would also just mess with my identity because I didn't even know who I was apart from that hard, driven, studious career guy. If I wasn't that hard worker, then who was I? And also there's just a bunch of uncertainty. What if I blew through my savings and didn't know what to do and had to go home with my tail between my legs? What if this was just a phase and I got bored after a while and I gave up that position in my program that I'd been working for 10 years. But then I started thinking about the pro side, and the pro side was really obvious. I'd be living my life to the fullest, and this is a concept that had become really, really important to me the past couple years before that, when my dad suddenly passed away when I was 21 years old, unexpectedly out of nowhere, and I realized how fragile life was. After that, I realized that I didn't want to waste any of the days that I had here on earth because I never knew when the next day would be the last day. So all these ideas were swirling around my head, and so I just didn't know what to do, and so I just sat there and started to pray a lot. I realize not everyone shares my beliefs, but I personally believe that God created me and God loves me and God has a plan for me and that I'm here for a reason. And I also believe that it's usually not wise to rush into big life decisions without consulting the big man upstairs. So as soon as I finished praying, I got this kind of weird feeling. I'm not really sure how to describe it. It wasn't like I heard a voice in my head that said, "Do it," or anything like that. It was more like a kind of pure confidence that just washed over me, like a feeling that said, "Okay, you've thought about this enough. I'm with you. Make a decision." So I picked up my phone, I opened that email, stared at it for a second, shook a little bit, and hit send. Instant relief. It literally felt euphoric, like a burden was lifted from my shoulders, and I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew that the world was my oyster. So I realize right now you might be thinking, yeah, okay, good for you, Mitch, that's awesome, but I can't do that because I have responsibilities and I have other stuff going on and it's just not an option. And so I just want to share some of the thoughts that I had before I hit send that really helped me put things into perspective. The first was thinking about what the worst case scenario would be, and realizing that the worst case scenario really wasn't even that bad. The worst case scenario would probably be something like I kept going, I got bored, I spent all my money, I couldn't figure out how to earn money, and I had to go home and live with my mom and get a normal job again, and really not that bad. And even if that did happen, I would still have some crazy stories and experiences that I never would have or be able to appreciate for the rest of my life if I would just go home and to start normal life again. On top of that, the best case scenario, or even a normal case scenario, had huge upside. The other thought that I was having is that I had worked so hard and made so many sacrifices to get to where I was and to achieve the things that I had achieved up until that point, and how could I just throw that away? But then I realized that maybe I was climbing up the wrong mountain. Like if you're trying to get somewhere in life or on a trip and you're climbing up a mountain for days and weeks and months and years, and then you realize that you're not even climbing up the right mountain, what do? Do you keep climbing that mountain even though it's the wrong one? No, you have to come down and you have to find the right mountain and climb that one. You don't just keep going the wrong way because you don't want to have to admit a mistake. You turn around and go the other way. I also realized that risks are less risky when you're young. And at this point, I was 24, 25. I still didn't have very many responsibilities. I still hadn't started that career and paid even more in student loans and started a family and bought a house and all those things. And that made everything easier, I know. But that's not to say that things are impossible if you do have those things. It just means they're harder, and the longer you wait, the harder it'll get. That's not the end of the story though, because fast forward, and instead of going back to Michigan at the end of my trip, I ended up going to Cali, Colombia to learn how to salsa dance. And in salsa dancing classes, I met a very pretty Colombian girl. Meeting this girl inspired me to start learning and researching ways I can make money online, because I realized if I have a girlfriend, I need money. And through this process of researching, I realized that there's actually lots of ways you can make money online or make money traveling which then led me to start my travel blog where I shared everything I found. The travel blog led me to start becoming a YouTuber. That girlfriend became my wife and introduced me in how to invest in Colombia real estate. So now here we are investing in real estate in Colombia, traveling the world as digital nomads together for the past 6 years. And the takeaway here is that I never in 1,000,000 years could have ever predicted this is how things would turn out back sitting in my house in Michigan. It's impossible to see all of the opportunities and all the doors that are going to open up until after you take the plunge. You can't just sit down at your desk with a pen and paper and try to plan out every single thing that could possibly happen. No matter how many pros and cons lists that you write, you will never have any idea on where you could potentially be until you take action. When I was sitting in that hammock in Nicaragua, that's exactly what I was trying to do. I was trying to map out every single life path that could possibly happen and try to choose which one I wanted. And when I was doing that, what I thought in my mind is that either one path would lead me to somehow becoming an English teacher and teaching English abroad somewhere, or another path would have me becoming that physio in Europe and traveling and working in other countries. But thanks to all the people I met along the way and all the experiences I had and all of the ideas that came from those experiences, it led me on a completely different path than anything I could have imagined, and it led me to exactly where I need to be today. That's what makes stepping into the unknown so exciting, because instead of following society's mold and you get a good degree and then you get your job and then you work up the ladder and then you save for retirement and then all those things and blah, 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 and you know exactly what's going to happen and what your life's going to look like for the next 50 years. That's boring. But if you choose to step into the unknown, it turns your life into a choose your own adventure book, and you never know where you're going to end up. And if you watch this far into the video, I'm willing to bet that you have the same sort of itch that I had, that there's got to be more than your current situation in life, and you want to figure out what that is. So I want to give you a challenge that I think can help you. There's a magical thing that happens when you put pen to paper and you write things down, especially when you do it in public, because it makes things real. So if you really, truly want to make a change in your life, I want you to take 1 minute or 2 minutes or however many minutes you want and write out a comment below this video saying what your desire for more is and the biggest thing that's holding you back from achieving it. And if you're serious about this, really take some time to think about it and let your imagination run wild, because the more specific details that you add, the more real that it'll become. I'll put some prompts on the screen that you can use if you're stuck and need help getting started, but you can write whatever you want, or you can read through the comments of other people for inspiration. And if your dream happens to involve travel and you want tricks for traveling smarter and safer, subscribe and hit that notification bell to get my best tips that I've discovered over the past 9.5 years on the road. And whatever you do, just remember that it's never too late to make course corrections in life. It's never easy, and it usually involves some sort of sacrifice, but your future self will thank you for it. At least mine did.